Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League podcast show. I'm your host, Alex Rex, the self-proclaimed FPL guru. And joining me today, all honest Todd, is Scott Williams. Scott, how you doing?
Hi, not too bad. Thanks, pal. How are you?
I'm all right. Fresh off the back of forgetting the deadline and accidentally captaining Saka, so that was fun.
That's all right. I mean, you don't put enough hours into this a week to just remember the very basic. Even I remember the deadline. So, you know.
It's when I
even Len Deacon remembers the deadline. Right?
He did as well. It's when I remind everyone that it's an early deadline and then I get sidetracked and then forget it. My wife hated being around me on Sunday. Guys, thank you ever so much for everyone who is tuning in. Don't forget to like the video, please, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to share the video as well if you like it with any of your pals, and to like us and follow us on social media on All in Football Pod, All in Football P on Twitter, Instagram, and when I do them, TikToks. So today we're going to just cover off game week 32, and we're going to look forward to game week 33. A lot of questions coming in, quite a few injuries. Obviously, Chelsea have been knocked out of the Champions League. A lot of different things happening, and also the FA Cups this weekend as well. So there's a few permutations that can occur. So we're going to cover off those, look at the fixtures moving forward for the rest of the season, talk a little bit of strategy, and yeah, just cover off your questions. So without further ado, let's talk about the All in Football Podcast League, which is getting very close at the top. Adrian Chippendale leading by 3 points over Gavin Webb, with Jeff Belcher only a further 7 points back. So there's 10 points covering the top three, and Jeff Belcher was our manager of the week as predicted in game week 31. Richarlison delivering with 17 points, Holgate as well. Very, very nicely done there, Jeff. Unfortunately, this week, even though you and Adrian got exactly the same amount of points, the manager of the week award, it's going to have to go to Adrian, just simply because he didn't take a -4. So in the case of a tie, he did one free transfer and you did one transfer and then paid -4 for it. So Adrian, manager of the week for game week 32. Well done. Top of the mini league. Son captain. Everyone who had Son captain did well. And everyone that didn't. That's well done, Alex. Someone got a hat trick. That's usually what happens in FPL. Really pleased to say that the three guys at the top of our mini league are all in the top 15,000 in the world. So I'm incredibly proud of our league at the moment. I can't lie. I think it's great news to see Adrian, Gav, and Jeff all in that top bracket. And our very own Tom Hughes, we've got 42k. And then all the way down to the podcast teams just outside the top 100k. So we've got 6 managers in the top 100,000 and 3 of them in the top 15k. So yeah,
just need to add a few points onto that podcast league one, though, don't we? The podcast team.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, I've not done us any favors, have I? Let's be honest. Poor Bernardo. But yeah, Pod League review getting very, very exciting towards the end of this league. And I have to say, knowing about the chip situation as well, I think Gav has still got a free hit left, and that's about it. Jeff's got nothing left in terms of chips. He's got nothing left. And Adrian, I'm pretty sure, has got a bench boost and a free hit left. So top of the league with most chips left. Feeling good, Aid. Good luck.
The amount he peppers the Instagram DMs, you'd expect him to be up there.
Mate, you keep firing them in there, and I want to help everyone the best I possibly can do. So let's quickly click onto the fixture ticker that we were looking at last week, because a couple of things have happened on here now, which obviously potentially change situations. So the main one we need to look at is Chelsea. What a match, by the way, Scott.
What bad was it? Well, not too bad. Yeah, I think they showed what they did at the weekend. I think that certainly got them a confidence boost, and it smashing Southampton, and yeah, they were unbelievable. But I think there was one person only with 1 second of magic that changed that tie, and it was 52-year-old Luka Modric with that outside of the boot ball. That was just so
that
sexy.
Was just
so sexy. I watched that on repeat for hours, and I'd admit I got slightly turned on by it.
I'm not surprised. It was the way that the Darren Fletcher was like, "What a finish! First time finish," and Glenn Hoddle in the commentary was like, "That pass.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was but yeah, amazing game. I love Champions League second legs. I think some of them are just incredible. When there's so much to play for and like deficits to convert back, and the quality on pitch. The upshot is, of course, is that Chelsea are out of the Champions League. So game week 34 or game week 35 now, if they beat Crystal Palace in the FA Cup, could become a double game week for Chelsea. So at the moment, they're down for double in 36 and double in 37. If they beat Crystal Palace in the Cup, that'll be a single game week in game week 37 against Leicester. And the game against Man United will either move to midweek 34 or midweek 35, meaning Man United will blank in game week 37. Not that anyone's got any United players anyway, but it's just to bear in mind. So especially if Chelsea beat Palace, they'll be one of the first teams to have a double game week. Then they'll have back-to-back double game weeks. And of course, they'll only be fighting for that one game for the FA Cup final, and the rest will be all about the league and securing third place. So either way, I would say after this weekend, it's all in on Chelsea. Even if they do lose to Palace or beat Palace, I don't really care either way. And we've got a question that we'll cover off in a bit about which three Chelsea players should I be putting in on my wild card if I'm wild carding in 34, which some people are doing. So we'll have a think about that one. There's a handful to pick from, but we'll cover that. But that's one of the permutations that can happen. The other thing is now as well is if Crystal Palace beat Chelsea and make the FA Cup final, which would be amazing news for Palace if they did, then they won't double in game week 37, like they said they're going to. They'll probably double in game week 35. And so, yeah, that's the only thing that would change there. The Villa game would move from 37 to 35. But that would also mean, so either way, it looks like now, either Aston Villa or Chelsea will have double game weeks in game week 35. And you never know. Then it's all very exciting. These things can all happen. But it will make the difference in terms of a few transfers that we're going to make. Manchester City, again, we're just waiting to see if West Ham get through, and it could still be 36 or 37 in terms of the double. Same with West Ham, of course, here as well. So we'll wait and see what happens with those. Leicester are a very interesting team that we're going to obviously have to discuss. If they manage to beat PSV tonight, it was 0-0 in the first leg. So if they manage to beat PSV tonight, then they're going to play every single midweek until the end of the season. And then the cup finals after the 22nd of May. So probably some heavy rotation in there, but they have the best fixtures and the most left. Nice to make it nice and complicated. So let's go and start talking about one of the themes that I find at this point in the season that we get a lot of is that people get too wed to players that have performed really well for them in the past. So I'm talking about players that have had really good runs all season that now potentially might not be doing as well. But we get a little bit blinkered, I think, by the fact that we go, oh, Ramsdale's been amazing this season and Saka's done a really good job for us. For an example, those two players, looking at Arsenal with Thomas Partey being out, etc. I mean, I think their win percentage is 33% without Thomas Partey and like 65 with him. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's so important to their team. But we get a bit wed to these guys we've got a lot of value in, and we get really wed to these players that we've done well for us all season. So let's have a look at the form. And this is the last 6 game weeks. So the players on the screen now for the YouTube watchers are the ones that have performed best over the last 6 weeks. So Son being top of the list for obvious reasons. They're 3 double-digit hauls in a row, 4 points clear of Kane, and then Doherty just behind, who is unfortunately injured and probably out for the rest of the season. Ivan Toney, he's done, I think, 3 double-digit hauls in his last 4 game weeks. Their fixtures don't look too bad moving forward either for Toney. If I just click on him briefly, you can have a look. They've got Watford, Spurs and Man U, Southampton, Everton and Leeds. So, yeah, not too bad at all for Toney. Kulusevski, done really, really well. Matty Cash, still up there with 47 points. And then we're looking at De Bruyne, Havertz, Mount, and Fabian Schär for Newcastle. Ben Davis for Spurs. So everyone's talking about who do I move to for Doherty? Do I go Royale? Do I go Reguilon? Potentially, yes, but Davis is playing every week. Even Coutinho still sneaks in, and you've got Lloris, and there you go. The list goes on. But there's a few surprise names in there that I think a few people have kind of been sleeping on, who have performed really quite well in the last few weeks. So a lot of us have got one of Son or Kane or both. But I think everyone would be quite surprised to see Ivan Toney, Matty Cash, Schär and Davis potentially up there as players. And then it's showing the form of De Bruyne, Havertz and Mount. Any surprises for you there, Scott? Anybody in there that you were definitely thinking about getting in? Anybody in there that what's your thoughts?
I think I've potentially been looking at Ben Davis. I know he's played more of a centre-back role, isn't he? But I've had him in the fantasy football draft for quite a few weeks now, and he's definitely been hauling points for me. He does seem to get in, even though he's a centre-back, does seem to get in actually okay positions as well. Mason Mount, I can't look at his name because I took him out last week for James Maddison, so that was horrendous. Matty Cash is one. It's surprising because Villa are actually not doing that great. That just shows how many attacking returns he has been getting in the last few game weeks. He's not really been getting too many clean sheet points. Other than that, I know Tony's been doing well, but I must say there's been quite a few penalties in that little run. Okay. So that is definitely something to bear in mind when you're looking at Tony.
The Eriksen effect's been good though, hasn't it? When you look at it, I think he's got 4 wins in his 90 minutes that he's played, which is excellent. And then you wanted to just quickly have the goals obviously works really quite closely with those attacking returns and numbers. Other players that snuck in there, Jack Harrison's got 3 goals in his last 3. I think he's got 8, 8 and 9 in terms of points, or 8, 9 and 9 in terms of points in his last 3. So he's been delivering, and Jota just constantly chips away at goals, doesn't he?
He's a player that'll do. He didn't perform very well against Chelsea, against Man City, but he got a goal. Exactly. I saw someone post something like this. Jota, what's the word? I don't know, like pulling the wool over people's eyes because he gets a goal and does nothing else in the game. Well, actually, isn't that his job to get a goal? So actually, it's one of those, isn't it? He is certainly a rotation risk though, with the talent they've got there though at the minute in those attackers. Firmino as well, he seems to be coming on some form. He scored a couple last night, didn't he, in the Champions League, and I think he scored the other week in the Prem. So that would be quite a scary one to move on for me, Jota personally. Yeah,
cheap forwards, Cucho for Watford. He's still got 3 goals and an assist in his last 5 games. I mean, I think
he's nursing an injury at the minute, though, isn't he?
Oh, fine. Okay, fine. And Zaha as well, sneaking in with his 3 goals in the last 5. I know one was a penalty that needs to be retaken, wasn't it, as well? Yeah. Rodrigo has been looking much better under Jesse Marsch as well. That has to be said. 7 appearances, 3 goals. So I think one of the things that we end. What my point is, I'm trying to make here is we get really quite clouded by the past, and like you talk about Cucho and Tony, and you're like, really? Come on, no chance would I put those in. Someone like Rodrigo in the beginning of the season, or even 10 game weeks in, if someone had said, I'm going to put Rodrigo in my team, and I kind of thought, I think Tom did at one point, didn't he? But you just look at it and you'd go, no chance. But and then players like Saka, who've been right up near the top, haven't been performing as well in terms of numbers, points, etc. So looking at the fixtures moving forward for the rest of the season, Leicester are top of the fixture ticker because they've got the most fixtures left, and also they've got good fixtures as well, it has to be said. So I wanted to take a look at Leicester and have a quick look at who we would probably look at getting in from them as a team. So off the last 6 game weeks, 4 points, we've got Kasper Schmeichel at the top with 33 points. So anybody who's looking at wild carding or free hitting or anything like that, Schmeichel has delivered points. I think there was a penalty save in there, I think. But still 33 points is good. Maddison, 30, outdoing Barnes by 4 points so far. So if you've gone for that option, if you went for Maddison over Barnes, then you've done better, even though he has been involved in one game less. And then the other player on here that we do need to just take note of is Dewsbury Hall. Now, Dewsbury Hall has played 6 games. He's played every minute in the league in the last 6 game weeks, every minute in the league in the last 6 game weeks. And in terms of shots, he's equal, second behind Barnes, who's miles clear in terms of shots. But they have 19 shots, only 6 of them on target, but had 19 shots in terms of his XG as well for Dewsbury Hall. He was a little bit lower down, but I think it was expected assists. He was quite far. Yeah, it was. Expected assists, he was third again behind Maddison and Barnes. So if you're looking for an enabler potentially, if you are wildcarding in 34 or you're looking to release funds somehow, he's an option, a cheap option that I think a lot of people wouldn't have even thought of. I enjoy watching him play. But the Maddison versus Barnes debate has raged on. And it's looking like Maddison's best. What are you feeling about the midfield of Leicester?
Well, I was actually seriously looking at Dewsbury Hall last week as my player to bring in and keeping Mason Mount in there and taking one of my cheaper players out. I really like Dewsbury Hall. I think he's a class player. The reason I didn't was because I didn't feel like he gets forward enough. He's usually the assist kind of guy. He does get into the final third at times, but is that kind of player that knocks it out wide and then the player crosses it in. Now, obviously, just to sum up my horrendous sort of decisions this game week, he went and got like 2 assists on a goal, didn't he? At the weekend, did really well.
Amazing.
But I would say one of the reasons I was looking at him is because he is one of Brendan's go-to guys. He plays week in, week out, every minute, doesn't seem to get injured. And he's growing in confidence. He's not a young kid, let's be honest. He's quite new to a lot of people, myself, but he's not a young kid. He's just taken a while to come through to the first team. And I think he's, out of all those midfield and attacking options, he's the one that's probably going to get rotated the least with all these runner games. So, like I said, if you want a cheap enabler that you think, it's probably going to play week in, week out, I would get Dewsbury Hall over Barnes, put it that way.
Fair enough. I think I think it's a good way of looking at it. Entries into the final third, he was high up there in terms of touches in the final third per 90. He's been top as well, Dewsbury Hall. Yeah. He's the sort of player that's involved in the game constantly.
What he does is he passed it to Thomas, you see.
What's interesting about the defence though for Leicester, so I wanted to have a quick look at those, because a lot of people have thought, well, if I can't get Schmeichel, Doherty replacement, who's the best replacement going to be? And ideally, if let's say you haven't got any free hits left, Leicester are the only team with Arsenal that double in 33 and 36. So especially if you've got your bench boost left but no free hits. Amati still seems to be playing every game. Everyone's had this fear of him being dropped, and I completely agree with it. Like Evans, Fofana, Soyuncu, they even bought Vestergaard in this summer. Like he was the 5th choice centre back, but he's still playing, and isn't getting dropped because he's probably the only one that's stayed fit. Yeah. He's looked all right. He's not looked too bad, but he's been up there. Soyuncu is just that everyone wants. As soon as anyone's fit, they drop him. So he seems to be the one that actually goes if Johnny Evans can play. One of the players that I do really like is Mr. James Justin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
4 appearances, obviously one off the bench, but he's had the most for shots. I mean, if you look at XG for defenders, 0.55 to 0.1, like he's miles clear in terms of expected assist, miles clear again of any others. He's just one of those players up there again behind Amati with expected points, but that's only because, of course, he's played 2 games less. That he's the sort of player that I think you look at 7 points so far. He's one of those players could go off. We've seen him do it at the beginning of last season. This season? Can't even remember now.
Last season, I think.
The beginning of last season was amazing, wasn't it? He got a really bad injury. But Justin's the sort of player where he can get you good returns. At 4.9, that's the same as Doherty, I think, at the moment. So if you are moving sideways, I'm seriously considering Justin this week in my own team. as a defensive move. Defensive lot, Scott. Anything quickly on the Leicester boys defensively? Any difference?
If you can afford him, get Justin, but Amati's really not a bad option at all. I would stay away personally from every other defender for Leicester.
I still wouldn't gamble on bringing Iheanacho in personally. And I know he's definitely delivered a better result than Daka has when he's been in the league. But if you are free hitting this week, then Iheanacho seems to be a relative option. They'll have the Leicester lineup at some point, I'm sure, during this pod. If you want to look at that Scottish League, they kick off in an hour, don't they? So, but finding out who starts for them, they'll probably play their first team tonight because they need to get through because it's their chance of a trophy. So yeah, that's
it starts tonight.
Iheanacho.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it makes me worry about him in the double game week.
Barnes, Dewsbury Hall, Maddison.
Yeah.
No Amati, no Justin. So
okay.
Probably going to play in the league.
Probably going to play in the league then. So yes, Justin seems like a good option for them. I'd stay away from the strikers. So that's the analysis on Leicester. The Doherty replacement. Yeah, Schmeichel, good option. Doherty replacement, I'd go for Justin personally. Amati, if you can want to free up funds, why not take the move, take the risk. In terms of midfielders, if you can afford Maddison, he's number one. Then it's pretty close, I think. Dewsbury Hall and Barnes. I think Dewsbury Hall's a great enabler. And then stay away from their strikers. So that's I had a couple of questions about Leicester.
I've got a question. It might be a question coming up already, but I think it kind of links okay because we've just said about Doherty replacement. So if you like me, I've got Doherty and Tierney, which a lot of people will have, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You've said one option there is to go sideways to Justin, which I love. Now, for myself as well, and I'm sure a lot of other people, we're sat there with Amati, and I'm definitely not doubling up on a Leicester. I don't want two Leicester defenders. So who are we looking at, do you think, potentially for that? Is his name Marcus Alonso?
I really like Alonso actually as a gamble pick. I genuinely do, but it depends how much money you've got in the bank because I do think we're going to move on to Chelsea now, and we're going to want to triple up on Chelsea. I think for the rest of the season, whether they're in the FA Cup or out of the FA Cup, and I think one of the players you need to bring in defence in replacement for Tierney or Doherty. I think one of those players needs to be a Chelsea defender, and it all depends on who you can afford and who you can't. Obviously, great statement. Sometimes you just say words for no reason. Who you can afford and who you can't. Obviously,
I think there's one boy that's top of the list if you can, surely.
Well, it's got to be Mr. James, hasn't it? If you can afford him, he's unbelievable. I think that these statistics here aren't really great. I'm just kind of using them for a list. I'm going to have a look at these statistics more for the midfielders. But when you're looking at James, was James and Alonso? James is the better pick. Alonso is the slightly more. I've got gambling problems, but I'm saving 0.8. He could end up working really well, and you never know because he does take set pieces. And if you get the Alonso's haul, you're laughing at you because also his ownership so much lower. And then the boring middle of the road pick is Rudiger. Now Rudiger's had the second most amount of shots of any defender this season. Apparently, can't believe these sort of statistics, can you? But he's probably the most reliable starter. But I actually think that once we get this game week out of the way, that other than that Leeds match before the FA Cup final, if they get to the FA Cup final, that is. Sorry, any Palace fans? I don't think I know any Palace fans, to be honest, but there you go. If that's probably the only game James won't play after this week. So, yeah, I like Alonso as the differential pick. But yeah, James, Rudiger. I think in the order, I'd go James, and then I'd go Alonso, then I'd go Rudiger.
I think for me, Rudiger, I've not been in all season. I don't like the person. I don't like him as a human being. I'm not getting him in. I'm refusing to. Let's get him out of the league and let's move on.
He's. I think there'll be much problem with getting him out of the league. I think he's been messing around with contract for however long, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Can we just quickly, just reflect on the fact that in the last 5 appearances, N'Golo Kante's had 3 assists. I mean, that's just amazing, isn't it? Moving on because no one's buying him. Havertz is just an absolute must if you're going on the Chelsea midfield. For any wild carders in 34, for me, it's Havertz, Mount and James. Personally, that's the three I'd be going for. I know Scotty obviously got rid of Mount last week, but
do you know where he was? I remembered the deadline and I panicked because I was like, I need to get a Leicester player in. I wish I missed the deadline.
Yeah, that was brilliant. You wish it was that. I really wish I didn't. It's cost me like 12 points in the end. In terms of midfielders, it's a no-brainer. It's Havertz and Mount. There's no other ones to consider for me personally. Don't get me wrong. Your Ziyech can hurt you sometimes. Your Pulisic can score some. I mean, he missed them 2 chances against Madrid, but yeah. So to move on from Chelsea, it seems to me like those are the best options. And I wouldn't touch Mendy still because he did rotate him with us. Arrizabalaga last season, didn't he? I just don't think he's worth it really as a goalkeeper.
Been a bit cheery lately as well.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. He made that save from that free kick. It was so much for the cameras. It was crazy. Arsenal are a debate because they're a double game week team, and they don't look anywhere near as good without Partey, Tierney, and the obvious issue that they've got with Lacazette. It's just not quite. He's obviously not scoring enough goals. They're a tough team for me. So their fixtures for the season, they've got Chelsea and Southampton. It's a double game week. Then they've got Man United. Then they've got West Ham. Then they've got Spurs. Then they have got Leeds, Newcastle, and Everton to finish off. I just don't know at the moment if I'd be investing any more into Arsenal just right now. What are your feeling on them? More from a footballing perspective than an FPL probably, but from both sides.
They're out of form. Yeah. They were looking good, and like you say, your party's gone out, and there's just no party anymore at Arsenal. They're a team out of form. They're looking a bit meh. I watched them get turned over by Palace a couple of weeks ago, and they were crap. They couldn't handle a Monday night under the Selhurst Park lights at all. They absolutely crumbled. And yeah, for me, they've gone right off the boil. The only player I would look at, and it's only because of his price point, is Martin Odegaard. That is the only player I would consider if I needed to get someone in. But I'm not. If game week 37 and 38, if they pick the form up, absolutely, I'd be pretty excited to jump on them again for the last couple of game weeks. But for now, with that pretty tough one, you expect Chelsea is going to be a tough game. You expect a reaction from Southampton. Man U, you don't know what you're going to get. West Ham's going to be a tough game. And then Spurs, the way they're going, we're looking at one of the best teams in the league at the minute. And Leeds, let's be honest, they've absolutely turned it around. So I wouldn't be jumping on them.
I agree. I got the stats up for Partey. The average goals they score per game is 0.3 without him.
Wow.
And I think one of the problems that they have, and I know David Byrne, who listens to the podcast, massive Arsenal fan, and might have an opinion on this one as well. So I hope I do the fan side justice. But Odegaard tends to play a lot deeper, and then they've moved Xhaka to the left back role, it seemed, against Brighton. Yeah. And then in the centre of midfield, instead of having Partey and Xhaka that seem to be working really well, they're two completely different players. And then also it took away Odegaard in the 10 role. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Smith Rowe is a good player, but they've had to completely change their system and style, and they don't have the strength in depth to be able to take Partey missing and Tierney. So my worry is that they're going to not do as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not selling Saka for this double game week. I'm not going to lose my mind and get rid of him. I'll obviously hold Ramsdale because I don't think Southampton will score. Personally, I think that's probably going to be a 0-0. They might even nick it Arsenal 1-0. And Chelsea, I don't know what Chelsea we're going to get. But still, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Without Partey, they're going to struggle. So yeah, no investment into Arsenal for me personally at this very moment in time. Takes us really nicely onto Spurs, actually. 28 goals they've scored in the last 10 games, and that includes 2 1-0 losses to Middlesbrough in the Cup and 1-0 to Burnley. So they've actually scored 28 goals in 8 games. They've only conceded, they've conceded 9. They have 3 clean sheets in their last 6. So questions we have from Spurs, about Spurs, are when you're having a look at Doherty, which defender do you go for if you want to stick with Spurs? Personally, I'm not that wed to sticking to Spurs as a defence at all, actually. But Davis at 4.4, he frees up a lot of funds. He seems to be getting some good points. If we have a look at points per 90, and we have a look at expected goal involvement, Sessegnon's been doing quite well with Reguilon. I mean, Sessegnon's back from injury now. Is he going to be rotated with Reguilon? I don't know.
I think Sessegnon, fully fit, is preferred over Reguilon. I don't think Conte likes Reguilon at all. Yeah, and I think when Sessegnon was fit, he was having a right run in the team and he was looking good. So I wouldn't go for either, but that's why I wouldn't go for Reguilon.
Sessegnon at 4.3 would be an interesting gamble for anyone, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. But I like the solidity of Davis, 4.4, if you want a defender from Spurs. But I just don't want a defender from Spurs, really. I still don't trust their defence that much.
I agree. I think Lloris has been doing a lot of good saves recently as well, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
He's definitely got one in to go through his legs, by the way, hasn't he, Lloris? Yeah. And then obviously we need to have a look at the guys going forward incredibly briefly. We all know if we could afford to have Son and Kane in the team, we probably all would do at the moment. Some of us do, which is great. 80 Chips top of our league now because he's had both of them. That's what's happened. It's really fallen into place. But Kulusevski, a solid third player. Is it worth ripping your team up to get Son in? Seen a lot of people do, and this will lead us nicely into our Liverpool chat. They chat about this going Salah to Son when they're getting rid of Doherty, because then they've had Doherty, Kulusevski, and Kane. A lot of people then go, "Oh my God, that's a lot of Spurs attack." But when we have a look at their fixtures, Brighton have been terrible until they lost to Arsenal. Beat Arsenal, sorry. I think they'd lost like 8 of their last 9 or something stupid.
Horrendous run.
Spurs, Brentford, we've got Brentford, Leicester. Leicester's defence is not very good. And then they've got the North London derby. And then, obviously, they've got Liverpool away in there. Then Burnley at home and Norwich away. If you're going to triple up on Spurs, you could do a hell of a lot worse than the team that have scored 28 goals in 8 football matches. Well, 8 of the last 10 matches with 28 goals. Your take on Spurs before we move on to Liverpool, and also would you do Son in for Salah?
My take on Spurs is, if there's 3 players I'd only want in that team, and that is Kane, Son, and Kulusevski, and I have Kane and Kulusevski, and I would love Son. Like, I'd absolutely love him, but I don't know if I could get him in. And for me to get him in, it would be the Salah route. I don't know if I've got the minerals for it. I don't know. It's one of those. It's like he's due. He was rested when he sat on the bench yesterday, for example. Obviously, resting him for the semi against City. He's been looking. I actually think he looked quite good against City at the weekend. I thought he looked a lot better there. He seems. I don't know if this is just me. For Liverpool, he seems to be really hogging that right-hand side. He doesn't seem to be in as much. Whereas obviously everyone's expected him to do the odd cut onto the left, swing it in, and he was very close to scoring last week by doing just that. But he seems to then a lot of the time then cut back onto his right because they know he's going to go on his left, and that's always leads to a cross for example. But I don't know. I don't think I've got the minerals to go away from Salah because he's still an absolute class act. And what happened last time against Man United?
Well, I'm going to. I don't remember, mate. So I'm going to absolutely frighten anybody now who thinks they're going to sell Salah. So Mo Salah, top for shots, top for his last 6 game weeks, which apparently is the time when he's looked not bothered and all the rest of it since AFCON. Top for shots on target, top for shots in the box, top for XG. So this is for Liverpool. Top for XGI, so that includes assists. He is second for expected assists behind guess who? Trent Alexander-Arnold, for obvious reasons. He's top for expected points, and he still is right down here in terms of actual points scored, 10 points off the top. But all of his statistics say that he should be scoring points. And his minutes per XGI, expected goal involvement, non-penalty, and this was pre the City game, by the way. So his minutes, expected goal involvement, non-penalty, from game weeks 1 to 18 was 117.9 minutes he was expected to be involved in a goal. Since game week 19, per 90, 53.5.
Wow.
Halved. But his output's not there.
Yeah.
So his conversion, it shows how incredible he was at the beginning of the season. His conversion. His conversion means it was unbelievable. He is due. What I will say is that I absolutely have no problem with anybody taking Mo Salah out right now to restructure their team to get a De Bruyne, a Son, or both of them, or to go wildcard a De Bruyne, Son, Havertz, Mount, Dewsbury Hall, midfield. I've no problem with it because it attacks the last game weeks. And if you are chasing, that's fantastic, because I absolutely guarantee you none of those top 3 lads in our league will take Salah out, because they won't want to risk it, especially when it looking at it'll make or break their season. I mean, if they take him out, they'll just drop like a stone, because the ownership up there is crazy. Whereas if you are trying to make big leaps, big gains towards the back end of this season, and you are 150, 175k, and you want to break the top 100k, sure, if Salah delivers to the numbers that he says on here, you could be screwed. But the other thing to say is that if you keep him and he does really well, then everyone else has got him and everyone else is going to do really well. So you're not going to do as many big gains. But yeah, the Mo or no, I think generally in a vacuum, it's a keep. And his statistics look good. But it's all about what your aims are. It's all about what you want to do with FPL at this very moment in time. And I'm seriously considering taking him out, because I don't care if I come 10th in our league or I come 6th. I want to try and win it. So that's kind of my attitude towards it, which, to be fair, is why, majority of the time towards the end of a season, my overall rank drops off a little bit, because I try and take a few gambles and they don't really pay off. So maybe don't listen to me about those. But if you are wildcarding and you are 200k in the world, for an example, I don't see any problem with that. So yeah, Liverpool, great. Spurs, we've done. City. We got to touch base on Manchester City. They are through to the Champions League semi-finals, which means that they will play in midweek 34 and midweek 35. And if they get through to the FA Cup final, they will play in midweek 36 and they will play again in midweek 37. So Pep Roulette will be all over the place. But I hope you're ready for this. I'm very excited by it. When you have a look at the players that Man City have, you've got to look at the ones that feature more often than not. And there are certain players that seem to be staples in Pep's team. We all know that if De Bruyne is fixed, we know he got a knock against in that brawl with Atletico. I didn't even watch it. I've just seen all the headlines after. So I called it to start with. I should have stood a 10 on it. I knew it would be 0-0.
Headline or hairlines?
There you go. Yeah, you see. But De Bruyne.
Tell you what, if you were playing that, it'd have been having a right tug at your, rug up there, wasn't he?
He was all over Grealish, wasn't he? Savage, apparently. He was.
He wasn't happy about his Gucci deal or something.
He was treating him mean. That's what it seemed like. Looking at the pictures, and he was giving Raheem Sterling a kiss on the face. Raheem Sterling, who had the most Raheem Sterling performance I've ever seen in my life against Liverpool, when he scored that goal, I thought, nice, he's delivered. He scored in a big game. I was like, he's got to be
pulled
offside.
Out for a change for him.
Got to be offside. I was just like, every time he's so close to being amazing, isn't he? But yeah, City, Edison, he plays every time. But Foden, Laporte, De Bruyne, Bernardo, Rodrigo, and Cancelo. Those are the players that seem to get picked every single time. So if you've got Cancelo, amazing news. But if you're looking at getting a midfielder in, when you look at someone like Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, he's playing apparently in a three behind the front three. He still had the most shots, equal with Mahrez, but Mahrez shoots on sight, doesn't he? De Bruyne's had the most shots on target. He's had the most shots in the box. He's got the highest expected goal involvement. I'm pretty sure he's got the highest expected assists. De Bruyne absolutely is a player that, City's still 1 point in it for this title. So they're going to have to play the best team. No doubt he'll have to miss a game at some point, or he'll get subbed off early at some point. He has to be. But I think between Laporte, Cancelo, Foden and De Bruyne, you're going to see 4 players there, obviously, Ederson as well, who are going to feature relatively heavily for the rest of the season here. It's just, is he too expensive, De Bruyne? Can you afford to have him and Kane and Salah and Trent and Cancelo? I think that's the tricky thing. What's your take on City, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to, Kevin De Bruyne is the player to get, isn't it? If you can, the amount of possession City have, he's not a sweat for you not having a sweat for him to have a sweat, if that makes sense. He's always going to be sniffing chances and setting people up. So it's not like this next team we're going to look at where you might have a Bruno Fernandes and he can go a whole game without looking like he's going to do anything. You've always got a chance of returns for De Bruyne. And when I had him in sort of December, January time, he was incredible. And it's something we said on the podcast a few times. He's such a fun player to watch. It's why I enjoy still having Salah in my team, because he is fun to watch. He's not one of these players where you think, like Kane was at the start of the season, let's be honest. He was getting like one chance, he had to score it. He's fun. Now Kane is a fun player to watch because he's in that, quarterback role a bit more now. He's always sniffing chances and that. So for me, if I could, I would get De Bruyne in, but his price is just so high. You'd have to take cuts elsewhere. I'd be tempted to take cuts with the defence. I think we've gone down different ways all season. If I was a wild card, I think I'd go cheap on defence and have those heavy hitters in attack. Your Kane, your Son, your De Bruyne. I'd want all 3 of them in there.
That's interesting. I think if you have Kane, Son, De Bruyne, and then hopefully Havertz and Mount, then you'd be looking at your maybe Matetas, Dewsbury Halls, and then you'd have to probably look at Amati, maybe even someone like a Cedric at 4.2. You have to facilitate these guys, and because you're not going the rest of the season without Trent, are you? So it's just, or maybe are you? I don't know. But I wouldn't have thought so. But City's fixtures: Brighton at home, Watford at home, Leeds away, Newcastle at home, West Ham away, Wolves to go in there, and then Villa at home. Amazing. They just needed to not lose to Liverpool, and I think that's an amazing run now towards potentially the title. When I look at Man United, we're going to sort of segue into the free hit section of this now a little bit. Segue into it. Do you know what I'll do before we do this? We'll segue into the free hit bit, but I'm just going to mention 3 of the teams really briefly because they'll also be important for free hits. So we've talked about Brentford actually already with Ericsson. So 2 of the teams, Newcastle and Southampton are 2 teams. So Newcastle as options, I think we've got to look at potentially Fabian Schär or maybe even Dan Burn. I've seen a few Matt Targets thrown in there as well, and defensively for Newcastle for their double game week, because they've got Crystal Palace and Leicester both at home. And then we're looking, because Fraser's out, etc., isn't he? So looking at Chris Wood or potentially Alan St-Maximin as a striker. These are all options for free hitters. And also, if you're not free hitting this game week, but you still have your wild card left, I look at Newcastle and I go, right, Palace, Leicester, and then Norwich. If you're wildcarding in 35, for an example, then you can take them all out for the Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal games. Good options potentially there for one-hit wonder gambles. And then Southampton, they've lost 5 of the last 6. The other game they drew 1-1 with Leeds. So I mean, you could look potentially at James Ward-Prowse, Che Adams, but I wouldn't be spending a lot of time being bothered with Southampton assets at this very moment in time. So anyway, United. If you are free hitting this week, I have to stress that you have no idea what Man United are going to do. And I have to also stress is that their first game is against Norwich and it's at home. So it's the best fixture you can possibly have in the league. So if we have a look at expected assists and expected goals, let's just have a look at expected goal involvement. Shock horror, Mr. Bruno Fernandes is up top, followed by Ronaldo. Now, they're obvious options. They're obviously expensive. They're obviously people that you could put in your free hit team if you wanted to do so. Paul Pogba, you could if you wanted to gamble on him, but he doesn't start every single time. The next two players down on this list are the two players, if I was free hitting Man United, I'd probably put in my team. Jadon Sancho, not a massive surprise there. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Fred. Let that one sink in for you. Fred is getting into much more advanced positions. In terms of XG for Manchester United, he's third only to Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes. He has actually scored and got an assist in his last 6. When you're looking at expected assists, he exists in the top 7 or 8 players. He is the sort of player at 4.9 who could really help enable your free hit team. If you wanted to go with 3 more expensive Leicester options, if you wanted to go with Schmeichel, Maddison and Iheanacho, instead of a Dewsbury Hall, you could potentially go with someone like Fred. Scott, I was really interested when I saw your free hit draft. That would have been interesting for me to put up on the screen, but unfortunately I couldn't get it to work, so I'm going to have to get you to read it out instead. Okay. But you had no Manchester United players in your free hit draft at all. So why don't you, for your, did you not have any in yours at all?
I didn't have any, no.
No. If you don't mind reading out yours to the fans, that'd be great.
Sure, it's Schmeichel. Went for the cheapest keeper option that plays as Foster, and then Cancelo, Amati, Trent, Tsimikas, Dan Burn, Bowen, Kevin De Bruyne, Maddison, Son, Odegaard, Che Adams, Kane, and Scarlett, just because it's the cheapest striker on the game.
Yeah.
I was trying to go as aggressive as I could for it. Just wanted 11 players that would play, and then looking at it, I'd looked at it initially, and I did have Bruno and Ronaldo sort of on my drafts, and then because of this fixture, and then I was looking at other games, and I was like, there was too many good players such as Kevin De Bruyne and your Spurs players that had potentially not single game weeks, but game weeks where they had one good fixture. Yeah.
So they both play Brighton. And they both play
Brighton, and they both got a second tougher fixture, right?
No, they're both literally Spurs and Man City. Their both fixtures are just both home. Brighton, because Brighton have literally the worst double game week I've ever seen in my life. Spurs away and City away. That's why I've not even talked about them.
So that's why I'd rather have Kane and Son and De Bruyne and Cancelo. Mm-hmm. One game week, because all we're doing is comparing game weeks, because that other fixture for Man U, Liverpool away, is, let's just forget about it, because they're going to get beat 4 or 5-0. There's no point in thinking about it. So for me, I would rather back Spurs and Man City against a joke Man United team at the minute. You know me, I'm not a Leeds fan, I'm not a Man U basher, but at the minute they're all over the place. I wouldn't want to sit there and sweat a game against Norwich, which they seem to struggle against pretty much any kind of team. I would rather be there sweating my players in form, my Spurs lads and my City boys, rather than against Man United players. And that's the reason I didn't include any of them in there.
I have to say that at the moment, there's no way in hell, if I'm building my free hit team, my free hit draft, that I would put Bruno and Ronaldo in, because I think they take up too much of your budget when you're looking at doing a good free hit. And it's that weird balance, isn't it, between upside and not. So when I was messing around, that was actually Sancho before I get ripped by YouTube viewers. But I was just playing around with the amounts before we set up on here. But let's just put in De Bruyne. in there. So when I was looking at my potential options for free hits, this was the team that I put together off the top of my head very, very quickly. It was Schmeichel, Cancelo, Burn and Shah, but Amati can start in there easily enough. De Bruyne, Son, Maddison, Saka, and I had Fred, but that could easily be Chris Wood, Iheanacho and Kane, and then bench was Foster, Livramento, Wood and Amati. But I mean, let's just say, for example, Amati comes in for Burn, and then Wood comes in for Fred. You know, something along those sort of lines is something that I would look at. I think if you're looking at free hitting, probably 7 double game week players or 8 double game week players is fine. You know, if you do want to take De Bruyne out to put a double game weeker in, you can do, but because you don't know who's going to start and who's not, but he seems to be the most nailed on. I dare you to go without Cancelo at the moment because I think he just looks amazing. But I saw so many different free hit drafts, and so many of them, pretty much every single one of these free hit drafts that I sent you over had Bruno. Like pretty much all of them. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. Now, I know that there was I know you had him captain for a double game week, didn't you? Which was, and it paid off really well for you. Yeah. But with the Liverpool fixture and United's form, his position on the pitch, I kind of get, because he seems to be playing like really, really advanced. So if I was going to go for Bruno or Ronaldo, I'd go for Bruno. Yeah. But I just wouldn't go for anyone.
If I had a gun to my head, I'd go for Fred. He's been the best player this season.
He has. He genuinely has. And you know what I felt about Fred last year? Literally felt.
And let's not forget, they were so lucky to beat Norwich at the start of the season as well. They beat them 1-0. It's a scrappy goal. I think a lot of people went Bruno captain. I think I went Bruno captain or Ronaldo. I think that game. And it was so lucky. Was it a penalty for Ronaldo that won it?
Yeah, penalty.
Yeah. And I think that was even controversial. So I know it's Norwich and we think you're going to beat them 5 or 6. They're not. They're not going to beat Norwich 5 or 6 because it's Man United. And am I right in thinking it's the early kickoff on a Saturday?
It is the first game, I think.
It's a 3 p.m. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff.
I know. On
they're just not going to beat Man United 5-6-0.
There you go.
Norwich 5-6-0.
No, we're absolutely not.
Norwich won, didn't they, the other week? They'll be full of confidence.
Yeah, it's a massive game for them. You know, like if they can get a result out of that,
yeah,
they'll be absolutely buzzing. So yeah, I wouldn't trust him. A few other players that I had written down anyway. So for potential opportunities for free hitters. So obviously in terms of goalkeepers, I did have Ramsdale and Kasper Schmeichel, Pope and Dubravka, but I think Schmeichel seems to be the best option. I did actually put Edison down as a potential option for a goalkeeper this week. I don't think you go far wrong with him or Hugo Lloris. Defensively, your Matt Target I've seen a few times. James Justin, and Castagna we talked about earlier. And yeah, if you wanted to go for an Arsenal defender, maybe someone like Cedric, but I wouldn't bother. I've seen a lot of Telles. I'm not a big fan of that, if I'm honest. I think Salah will rip him a new one. Midfielders are interesting. So a couple of players that we haven't talked about here. Maxwell Cornet is on pretty good form. 5.9 million. Burnley have got a pretty good double game week. So if you wanted to put someone cheap in there, you could do. Southampton at home, West Ham away. I think they've got a good double game week there. And if you're going to go for a Burnley player, Cornet's your man. James Ward-Prowse, you can't go too far wrong with him. Don't ever forget Martinelli as well. And then in terms of strikers, Chris Wood, Iheanacho, Che Adams, if you really wanted to go there. And one player as well that I think if you wanted to take a gamble on in a free hit would be Gabriel Jesus, because I think he plays against Brighton personally in terms of rotation. And I think City will batter Brighton. I think he'll get 90 minutes in that game. That's my guess anyway. So, and also if you're free hitting, just have playing players on your bench. Have a double game week playing player on your bench. If he doesn't play, he doesn't play. It's just the way. I think it's just the perfect opportunity to take. Like maybe someone like Mahrez. If you wanted to gamble on a Mahrez, you know he's got a hat trick in him. If you wanted to go with Sterling, you know he's got a hat trick in him. He's a flat track bully against bad teams like this, especially at home. You know, all of these moves aren't bad moves. So that's my feeling on that one. But generally speaking, if you've got a free hit left, I probably would still wait for 37 or 38 if you've got a bench boost in 36. Because I think the upside is better in those games. Just closed off. I think the upside is better in those game weeks. I think I think you want your team to be more different in that game week compared to this week. I'm more than happy with my side putting it out, and I think actually 37 or 38 is a fun one, because when you look at Chelsea, they've got Watford at home. I mean, that could be 9-0 if Watford are already down, and Chelsea have got nothing more to play for. At that point, that will be their last game of the season. City have got Villa at home. You never know. Liverpool have got Wolves at home again. You never know. But yeah, there's a couple of games in here that I kind of like the look of. I mean, I'd back Palace at home against Man United all day long if that's their last game of the season. Because United will have nothing to play for because they'll be out of top 4. They're doubling up on Palace in that game because we are terrible last game of the season. We are the ultimate on the beach in sandals because we're pathetic as a football club. And those players are pathetic in the last game of the season. Scotty, captain for this game week. It's interesting, isn't it?
I think this is the toughest game week captaincy choice of the season so far. You can look at your single game week players. For me, you're looking at your Kane, your Sons, absolutely. And then I think you're looking at your Kevin De Bruyne's out here for your single game weeks, maybe even a bloody Cancelo, someone like that.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got your big double game week players, which is, you're probably looking at Leicester, which then you're looking at James Maddison. So I think for me personally, it's James Maddison, or you single up on a Kane, Son, Kevin De Bruyne, but Salah against Man United at home. We know what happened in the reverse fixture. So I think it's a really tough. I think we're going to see a lot of different captaincy choices this week. It's just whether I think if you hold your nerve and go for a single game week, the only thing I'm worried about for Spurs is the 12:30 Saturday lunchtime kickoff.
I completely
Never particularly a good one.
It just ruins your weekend if you captain some rubbish, doesn't it, in that first game? But I do feel the way Brighton play will probably play into Spurs' hands, especially at home. I think if you've got Son, I think he's probably the best option. Maddison, again, best double game week. We're going to see a good variety of captains this week, and I genuinely think that none of them are bad moves. I can't say I'm going to see someone make a mistake here and put the armband on someone that they shouldn't, because genuinely, De Bruyne, Salah, Son, Kane, Maddison, any of them are a good idea, just not Bukayo Saka. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, I won't be doing that, mate.
No, me neither. And also, if you are chasing and you do want to go different, it isn't the worst thing in the world to captain Bruno or Sancho. It really isn't, because you genuinely do not know what United are going to show up.
If you're stupid enough to have him in your team, then yeah.
Yeah, kind of. If you've put Bruno in, you probably should captain him.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. But I think that's kind of covered off the questions that we've had this week. The best Doherty replacements in terms of KDBs and Sons, and should we get them in or not? Tripling up on Chelsea and captains this week. I think we've covered off those quite nicely, Scotty. So we'll call it a day there, so people have got time to digest this before the Saturday deadline at 11 a.m.
When is that, Al?
11 a.m. I'm going to set an alarm in my phone to make sure that we don't miss it this week. We don't miss it. I don't miss it this week. Royal we. Thank you ever so much, guys, for joining us. I really appreciate it, as always. Thank you so much for sending in your questions, participating in the league. It makes this show so much fun. We're still so happy that we do this in conjunction with our friends mini league that we've got as the podcast league. It just makes it even more fun. So I do really enjoy it. Even when I do forget the deadline, I still genuinely enjoy doing this every single week. So don't forget to like the video, share it with your mates, subscribe, and also follow us on our social platforms. On Football Pod, On Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Scott, thanks for joining me.
No problem.
And we will see you again next week. Bye for now.